What's up, YouTube? So I got a comment. Let me paraphrase it from you. This user pretty much said, she's watched my videos for a while, and she definitely understands the whole issue surrounding black people growing up in the suburbs, or black people growing up middle class versus black people growing up growing up upper class, and black people growing up in lower class or growing up in poverty. But she said she feels like I make too many assumptions about middle class black America, or just middle class, in that somehow we are better off and somehow we've already made it. And she thinks that I blur the lines between upper class and middle class. I understand where you're coming from, but I have to disagree with you. I understand what's going on, okay? I understand the struggles of middle class America, okay? Here's the problem. When people think of America's middle class, and in terms of children and those who grew up middle class, there's this assumption that you have access to money. When you grow up in the middle class, to be real with you, you don't really have access to wealth like that. For example, most college students in the middle class, right, they're loaned up just as much as anybody else. Even though their parents went to school, they still have student loans. When they graduate, there is no this whole idea of mommy's going to help me buy a house. Mommy and daddy are going to put down a deposit or just flat out buy me the house and I own it and I rent it out. Or, my parents are going to buy me an Audi for graduation. That's not going on in the middle class, okay? That is more so upper class, when you deal with the whole idea of money not being an issue, right? When you're living in the middle class, to be real with you, you're always a couple of paychecks away from being nervous, right? People, what really hurt in terms of this economic recession or depression, whatever you want to call it, is the middle class pretty much blew through their savings. Blew through it. People were losing jobs, and literally within a year, things weren't going too good, right? And people were struggling. People were moving out of homes, losing their cars. It was really bad, right? The middle class doesn't have access to money like that. What we more so have is we have access to information, okay? Which makes things different from the upper class, because the upper class has access to information and they have the money. What do I mean? Well, in the middle class, okay, your parents will more than likely be professional, okay? So they know what it means to be an adult, okay? So my parents, I can somewhat relate to my parents in terms of how they grew up. And then I can relate to my parents in terms of professional America, because we're in the same sort of field. So I can sit down with my dad and talk about the workplace. I can sit down with my mother and talk about the workplace. We connect, okay? So they can share with me vital information. Now, if I said, hey, mommy and daddy, I need $50,000 for this house or whatever, do they have it? No, right? This is what makes us different from, in my opinion, the upper class in terms of upbringing, okay? Because yes, your parents are professional, right? So you can connect with your parents on a professional level, but then at the same time, they can come through and write you that check. They can help you out financially. So the whole idea of having a whole bunch of student loans and having to worry about this, that, and the third is not an issue. There is no problem there, and that's not what's going on in the middle class, right? Everybody has this assumption that we're caked off when we have money. No. That's not what's going on, okay? Now, her next point, she tried to say that there isn't this big difference in terms of the middle class and the lower class, or those coming from poverty, right? Because I understand where she's coming from, because in a nutshell, if I go to school, okay, I'm going to get a whole bunch of student loans, right? They're going to say, hey, but your parents make good money, but they don't understand that most of that is going towards bills, okay? Paying for the mortgage, paying for the car, paying for insurance, right? So this whole idea of coming from the middle class, but parents have money for you, is not really true. You're worrying about scholarships or financial aid. And the point she was making was that if you're coming from the hood or lower income environments, yeah, your parents also don't have money, so you're going through the same thing. Right? We're both getting loans, we're both getting scholarships. So why is it that people want to come on and act as if we in the middle class have it easier? right? When we graduate, there is no home, there is no car. Obviously, it's the same thing for people, in lower income areas or poverty. So in a nutshell, the point she was trying to make is we're not getting that much of a head start. And this is where we disagree. Like I said before, the difference, okay, if you look at the lower class, obviously you're similar in terms of the middle class when you're growing up, but your parents don't have that money, right, just to give to you. Obviously, there is no wealth. There's not enough money to say, hey, we're going to buy you a car, we're going to get you a house. But what you're missing, and other people who think like you, what you're missing, is the whole idea of having access to that information, right? So if you grew up middle class and your parents went to college, they know what to expect, right? I deal with students, and some of them have good parents. And their parents are like, man, I want my son and daughter to go to school. But because they didn't, they have no clue what to look for. So they don't know the difference between a remedial class and a college prep class. They don't understand that, right, one class can mean that your child is not eligible to go to school, even though they want their child to go to college. They don't have access to that information. Right? They didn't have the whole process. They didn't have the whole challenge of going through the college application process. Even though they want their child to go, they don't understand what they have to do. Okay? Which is different from the middle class, because if your parents went to college, yeah, things have changed, here and there, but they understand the whole process. They understand the whole idea of you need to study for the SAT and you need to get this score. You have to fill out this application. You have to fill out this scholarship essay. They understand that whole process. So your parents are still an asset to you. Whereas people coming from lower income or poverty-stricken environments, their parents are not exposed to that. So that is the difference. So you have access to that information. You're coming from a world where your parents know how to hold you accountable. They know what you're supposed to be doing. They know that a C isn't going to cut it. They know that a B is not going to cut it. But in other environments, they're not sure. There is that want, but there is this area of, man, I don't know what's going on, because they haven't been through it. Secondly, okay, when we're dealing with life during college, let's look at life during college. If your parents went to school, right, they are going to understand, for the most part, some of the challenges that you're going to go through, right? So they're going to be able to help you out. Your parents are still going to be a resource. They know the whole idea of the midterm, the final, maybe failing a class, and all the other subtle nuances of college life. But think about if you're coming from an environment, a lower income or poverty-stricken environment, and you do make it to college. You're on your own. I remember doing the whole move-in thing and helping people move in, and it was weird, because when I would see the middle-class students move in with their parents, it was a different sort of interaction, because the parents were like, oh, I remember these days, and there was this whole idea of things continuing. No one was really leaving, but when I saw some of the other minority students move in who came from certain environments, it was completely different. Dad was crying, mom was crying, because their son or daughter was leaving, but they were crying because they're leaving a world that they don't know about. So they loved their child to death, and they did everything in their power to bring them up to that level. But they're going off to school, and I'm like, man, if my child has a problem, they can't come to me like that. I'm not sure what to do. I'm not going to say, oh, you need to go talk to your counselor, and then you need to, go get this form, and, well, they don't have the right to do that. There is no level of I can help my child out. They don't have that sort of knowledge because they haven't been through there. So once again, you coming from the middle class, you have that advantage. Okay, and lastly, like I said before, and this is more so, no. And this is the advantage of coming from the middle class as well. When you graduate and you're into professional America, what's going to happen? Well, your parents are also in professional America, and you will still be able to identify with your parents. So you can talk about what's going on in the workplace. You can talk about issues going on with your boss, because you're in a different type of environment. More than likely, you're going to be in white-collar professional America, and your parents are probably there as well. Yeah, they may have started off blue-collar, but now, they're managers, or, they're directors or whatever they are. Okay? But if you grow up lower or in poverty, your parents are more than likely in blue collar. So you're in white collar, they're in blue collar. Yes, they'll be able to help you, but there's still going to be areas, right? You're still going to be in a whole new world that is different. A completely new world. So this is the difference. I'm not saying that people in the middle class don't have their struggles, but you can't equate it, or you can't say it's the same as coming from a lower income, poverty stricken environment. It's not the same. Okay, yeah, we both have some sort of struggles that are similar, but we still have the benefit. We have the benefit of having information. Maybe not wealth, that's more so upper class, but we have the benefit of having information because our parents have pretty much been through what we're going through. So hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from. You guys take it easy. God bless.